Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of NewTek Tuesday Tutorials. My name is Richard Evans and today I have a really exciting new product to show you, and that is the NewTek Spark Plus IO module. Now these little guys come in two different models, an SDI version which supports HD 60p and the HDMI version which supports 4K 60p. Now these units are designed to encode your SDI or HDMI signals into NDI, but now you can also decode your NDI signals into SDI or HDMI, which is something a lot of y'all have been asking for. So this is NewTek's first ever NDI encoder and decoder, and it's pretty awesome. Alright, so let's take a look at the connections for the Spark Plus IO module. Now on the back of the unit you have your NDI port to connect it to your NDI network. You can also power these units via PoE, so you can use this same port for connection and power if you have a PoE switch. Now we also have the inputs for encoding and outputs for decoding NDI signals. Now when the Spark Plus IO module is in encoding mode, you can have your input inserted and then this output will act as a pass-through, so you can have a low latency monitoring of your video signal. Now when the Spark Plus IO module is in decoding mode, the input connection will be deactivated, so you can only do one mode at a time, so keep that in mind. There's also an 1/8" jack here for bringing in an external audio source and a USB power connection to power the unit in the event that you do not have a PoE switch. Now switching to the front of this unit, we also have tally lights on here as well. So if I bring up this particular source on my preview row, that tally light will show up green. And if I bring that source on my program row, then that light will turn red. So that way you know when this bad boy is in action. Alright, so now let's go ahead and go through encoding of a signal first. So I have my camera on my desk here plugged into my Spark Plus IO module via HDMI into the input. So let's go ahead and configure the TriCaster to bring that in as a signal. Alright, so here we are in the TriCaster Mini 4K interface, and I want to bring in my Spark Plus IO module into my input number 1. So I'll click on this gear icon on input number 1, and then under this source selection tool, click this drop down, and I will scan to find my Spark Plus IO module, which is right here. And boom, there we go. Now I have the output of my camera converted into NDI via the Spark Plus IO module. So what's cool about that is now that it's NDI, I can now distribute that signal wherever I want to on my network. But there's a few more things in here. So let's get into some nitty-gritty details by opening up the administrator mode of my Spark Plus IO module. And when I click on the device web page, it will bring up the administrator panel for your Spark Plus IO module. Alright, now you can see across the top some really basic settings going on. I currently have my camera that I have plugged into it set to be 1920 by 1080 at 60 frames per second. And then beneath that, under the basic settings, this is where you can go to add your Spark Plus IO module to a group, or you can also change the device name, determine what NDI channel you want to be on. Also, remember earlier I mentioned that there was an 1/8" jack on the back of the Spark Plus IO module. If I click on this, this will allow you to select the HDMI embedded audio or 3G SDI embedded audio, depending on the unit that you get, or select the mic input. I'm going to go ahead and leave that the way it is. And so those are kind of the basic encoding settings here on the Spark Plus IO module. But here comes the fun part, and that is the decoder. So to switch it over to decode mode, we'll click up here at the top, decoder. And when I do that, it will give us a warning, just letting us, just reminding us that the Spark Plus IO module can only do encoding or decoding at one time. So it can't be both. You got one or the other. Just keep that in mind. Alright, and this is the admin panel for the Spark Plus IO in decode mode. So going from the top here, you'll see I have my output that's going to my monitor is coming from this machine here, my Stage Right Mix 3 at 1920 by 1080 at 60 frames per second. I can even see the audio bit rate and the IP address if I need it as well. Beneath that is going to be our decoding presets. And from here, we have 9 different presets to choose from any of the NDI sources available to me. And then all I would have to do is just click between them, and that will switch the output video of whatever monitor I have plugged into the Spark Plus IO device. Now there's another way to bring in a video source to the Spark Plus IO, or out of the Spark Plus IO, is by going through on the source list. You'll see these are all the different pieces of equipment that are broadcasting over NDI that's available to me. And what's cool about that is you'll see that there's numbers next to some of these. So for example, my Mini 4K has 4 outputs, my tablet has 2, and then if I go to my VMC1, I have 36 different ones to choose from here. So let's go through and click this drop down for my mix number 1, and I'll bring that on screen by clicking on decode here. And check this out. So when I do that, now I have the mix 1 of my TriCaster Mini 4K displayed on the screen here. Now if I go back over to the administrator panel, I can then basically switch directly from here if I wanted to. So for example, I can go to mix number 2 and click on that, and then that will change the source on my monitor over here as well. But let's start to add some sources to our presets that are above on the admin panel. So to do that, right next to the decode button, there is a plus button here. And if I click that, I can select which preset number I want to add it to. So I'm going to select number 1. So now you see mix number 1 is up there. I have the TriCaster's name and the IP address as well. So let's go ahead and grab the number 2 and add that to number 2. Just make sure that you're selecting number 2 here, or you will overwrite whatever you have in the first slot. All right, and to show you that I can select anything here, I'm going to go to my VMC1, and I'll say, I don't know, let's select mix number 3. Okay, and we'll add that to 3, hit OK, scroll back up, and now I can basically do switching right from this administrator panel. So check this out. We'll go back to my camera, and I'll go and select the output number 1 again, and then I'll go to output number 2, and then I'll go to my preset number 3, which is coming out of my VMC system, and that's that NewTek logo here. So some rudimentary switching that you can do directly on the device, so you don't necessarily have to have the output of the Spark Plus IO married to any Mix 1 or any switcher row on a TriCaster. You can do that just directly from the administrator panel, making it extremely convenient. Okay, now I've just been messing around with 1920 by 1080 signals, so I mentioned earlier that this can do 4K, so let me show you how to do that. All right, so let's go and select encoder on my admin panel here. And it'll reconfigure my Spark Plus IO module. All right, and once that configuration is successful, again, you'll see my camera that was broadcasting over 1920 by 1080 at 60 frames per second. Now I'm going to go back over to my camera and configure the settings of this to be 4K. Now, in doing so, what will happen is my camera is going to reboot itself. So keep an eye on my resolution, and you'll see that'll go blank. Yep, there you go, no signal resolution. And once my camera boots back up, we'll see what it's broadcasting in. Boom, I am now broadcasting out of that camera at 4K, 30 frames per second. Now keep in mind, you can connect a 4K 60p signal to the Spark Plus IO module. The camera that I just happen to have here can only do 30 frames per second. But again, 4K 60p coming through on a Spark Plus IO module, encoder and decoder, super awesome. So as you can see, these are very powerful and versatile pieces of equipment, greatly expanding your input and output capabilities using the power of NDI. But wait, there's more. If you purchase a TriCaster Mini 4K, that system is now going to come with 2 of these modules, either the SDI or HDMI version. So that way, all you have to do to connect a camera now is, instead of plugging one of these up to your network, all you have to do is plug in the NDI output from here into one of the NDI input ports, and you're done. That's all you got to do, and that's pretty cool. Now, for more information on the Spark Plus IO modules, contact your local NewTek reseller or visit newtek.com. And for more video tutorials like the one you're watching now, check out our YouTube page at youtube.com/NewTekInc. And for even more NewTek information, check out newtek.tv. And until then, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time on another edition of NewTek Tuesday Tutorials.